What's up, everybody? It's your boy Kizzle, and I'm joined here today with my man Celastro. If you guys don't know this already, Celastro is my co-host. We've been doing this together for 2.5, 3 years. How long? Something like that. It's been a little while. So we do Twitch streams together, and we're doing Twitch streams currently on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes on weeks that I have my son, we do them at 9, but we always have that schedule posted in our Discord for everybody to check out. So if you haven't already, guys, please join us. And we've been doing Ace videos lately, messing around a little bit with some Lost Ark. We attempted to do like 10 minutes of Elden Ring the other day, but we won't go there. All right, that was me trying to figure out the character select stream.
We won't go into that.
We won't mention that one. We'll just leave that unmentioned. I don't know why we scripted it. I'm looking at it right now, to be honest, but it's okay. I added that part. So with that, guys, we're going to talk about the most recent change to the Void Tower. So with Ace, we're going to be doing a lot of videos on Ace. This is the game that Celastro and I are currently playing. We absolutely love it. It's a breath of fresh air coming from Raid Shadow Legends. Honestly, to me, it really feels like Ace stole some of the best aspects of every gacha game out there. And I honestly think this game has significant staying power. But with that, we wanted to start out with a video that's relevant to recent changes. So the new Void Tower came out last night. I'm going to say we, but I really mean Celastro has done a significant amount of research on it. And essentially, we want to kind of give you guys some tips, some pointers. And before we dive really into that, I do want to kind of, for people that don't know, explain what the Void Tower really is, in my opinion, relative to Ace. So in all gacha games, we have PvE, we have PvP content, right? In PvP right now, we have the arena, and we're in shards. So you're in a shard with, we don't really know how many people, 19,000, 20,000 people is the average, but you're in that shard with a certain amount of people. That changes every arena season, right? So that is one aspect of in-game. That's one aspect of the end game for Ace today is the PvP. The other aspect of the end game is the Void Tower. Now, something I like quite a lot here is if you go to the rank tab at the bottom right, you can actually compete with one another. You can see who gets to the top first, right? I love any competitive aspect to a game, especially when it's done without monetization being the main weight of it, which in Ace, I think that's done the right way. Obviously, when you do Void Tower, you get significant rewards, absolutely significant rewards. At the end of the normal Void Tower, you get the Ancient Summoning Crystal. So one thing you see in some gachas is the Void Tower kind of being a place where you can get some great resources, and that's sort of it. You're going to spend a day getting those resources. It's all going to happen on auto, and you kind of go about your business. Void Tower seems to much more be the in-game PvE, in my opinion, and I think Celastro shares that opinion. And it changes, what, monthly, right?
Yep, every month, every 30 days.
So every 30 days, and one thing we've learned through Celastro's diligent research is the fights themselves actually stay the same, but there is a significant change. I'm going to go ahead and let you run through that and explain it, man.
Sure. So basically every month on the normal rotation, they'll have what I like to call an affix. And it'll basically be some kind of buff that the enemies have that make the floors a little challenging. So you don't only have to deal with the enemy's abilities, they also have something else on top of that to increase the challenge level. And so last month on the normal tower, whenever an enemy was under 50% health, they would deal 50% more damage to you. So it's kind of like an enrage. Kind of makes it a little harder. If you kind of get the enemy low, they'll just hit you hard. So that wasn't too bad. When you get into the hard Void Tower, which is the second level, after you clear 100 floors in normal, it unlocks hard, and you can do that. Last month, they had a power that dealt damage to you based on their max health. And so the enemies at the top levels of hard Void Tower have 20, 30, 40k health. So every time they would hit you, it would do 2,000 damage or 4,000 damage based on their health. And every turn, they gain a stack of that. So they would do double damage every turn, which just got to absolutely ridiculous levels. And it got to the point where basically if the enemy took a turn, you lose. So it led to a lot of teams of a lot of DPS on the comp. You basically had to nuke them down as fast as possible or you would die. And what they did this time is they changed that completely. So on normal Void Tower this round, there is a new buff called Blessing of the Seven Gods. And what happens is the enemies have a stack of this blessing when the round starts, and they gain 1 stack every time they take a turn. When they get to 7 stacks, they will stun you, and that stack doesn't go away. So once you get to 7 turns or 7 rounds, they will just constantly be stunning your team over and over and over again. So you have 7 turns to kill them, which is a lot easier than just 1 turn, which is what it was last month. And so that's actually going to lead to a lot of changes in what champions are used in the tower. Um, Champions that can CC are very, very strong. Champions that can slow to make you able to take more turns before they do is very, very strong. Champions that deal damage to them even if they're stunned, really, really strong. We'll go over some examples later here. But the really interesting thing is when you get to hard Void Tower. So once you clear normal tower, you get to hard, it adds a second affix. And that second affix was very, very, very painful last month. This month, it increases the enemy defense by 50%. So everything is tanky. Everything is tanky. But if the enemy is in any kind of crowd control, which is freeze, stun, or taunt, I tested it, taunt does work, that effect is completely negated. So a lot of champions have gained a lot of value here. Tia, Urian, Myla, Silent, Balberith, even Balby, the one that no one likes to pull. Thomas, Kane, Lunar Melisa has gained an incredible amount of value. All these are champions that can stun, freeze, or taunt. Another thing that's super important is that the AoE defense down spell has increased in value tremendously. It was already really, really good because, you want to do more damage to the mob. But the debuff is 50% damage reduction, or 50% defense reduction. So you're basically negating that affix entirely by putting that spell up. Just remember that if you're using the spell, it will use the focus of the champion that's using it to land the spell. So you don't want to use it on someone that has 0 focus because it'll all get resisted.
What's the minimum focus you would suggest? So let's say you're using Aurak. He's got defense down on the A1 and the A3. Where would you suggest you put his focus at?
For normal tower, I'd probably say 40 to 50% focus is fine. Once you get into the later stages of hard Void Tower, you're going to want to be pushing 80 plus to be able to consistently land that debuff for
now,
sure.
Is there a greater defense down as well as a regular defense down? Because I know the Aurak's regular defense down here is 30%. Is there a 50% as well?
I believe there is only defense down. Yep, there's only defense down.
Okay. We've seen in gaches where they can kind of go back and forth. So now, with that second affix in the Void Tower, what about true damage? Does true damage become a priority as well? Okay.
Yes. So champions like Rickard, Rog, Charles, Corrupt Aurak, and Elson, which, Elson hasn't really seen much play in a lot of teams. Some people use him on Tulpa, but not really. So these are all champions that can do true damage, which completely does damage regardless of the champion's defense, of the enemy's defense. So those are really, really, really strong. Rog, in particular, is really strong here because say you're going against the enemy team and you're struggling and you get all of them down except one, and he's got that 7 stacks of the buff and he's going to start stunning you. And now your team is basically completely crowd controlled. You can't do anything about it. Rog does true damage when he is hit. So if you have Rog in a revival set just constantly healing himself and the enemy's just hitting him and stunning him over and over, the enemy's going to kill themselves. They're just going to be constantly taking that true damage. So Rog is really, really, really viable for a free-to-play tower team right now. Very, very good.
So Rog does true damage? Okay.
Yep. Rog does true damage based on his max health when he's hit.
And guys, just so you know, if you don't know this already, the true damage is going to be whenever you deal damage, it is the yellow, what should I say? The yellow font, the yellow number. I like that because sometimes true damage can just be like a decently high number and you don't really know how to differentiate it. But in this game, it is yellow. So that's cool. I like the fact in this game that we're constantly seeing elite units, right, be viable. Constantly. Across the board. That is not something coming from Raid Shadow Legends that we're used to. No. Usually if it's an epic, maybe. Every once in a while it's got some play. To see elite units, I think, what is it? The Ice Wolf is meta. Yeah, and he's a common unit. So it's a shock. But I really do like that aspect of it. So, all right, from there, you've gone through several different champions. Any ones that you want to specifically focus on?
I think the highest value right now, especially for rares, for free-to-play players, Charles is going to be great. He deals true damage based on his defense. So you can stack him up with defense, and he'll just hit like a truck, and it'll do true damage. So it doesn't matter that the enemies have 50% increased defense. He doesn't care. Rog, as I said, is very, very good, especially if you're kind of able to get most of the team down and you're struggling with one enemy left. He can just sit there and be stunned and still
Okay.
kill people. Another one that's actually pretty good in that situation is Valuk, who's used in a lot of early game free to play Queen teams. Same thing with him. He puts up a poison when the team is hit. So if your team is permanently stun locked and you can't do anything, if you have Rog and Valuk on your team, anytime the enemy is hitting you, they're going to be getting a stack of poison on them, and they're going to be getting hit with the Rog true damage. So good little free to play combo there.
Yeah, and honestly, you should be building them up as it is, right? They're both viable in Queen, right? So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So I
They
mean,
are.
if you're, it's an interesting thing. If you're mega whaling in this game, there's some options for you. But it's cool that Rog and Valuk are actually not just going to be something that you build up exclusively for Queen and kind of park them there. You know, they actually have some
Yep.
viability within this Void Tower as well. Now, one thing I remember you talking quite a bit about, I thought might be a cool thing to kind of add here. Now, you got really far for your count into the hard Void Tower in the last rotation.
Yes.
Can you give us like some best practices, some tips and tricks, and on how you were able to accomplish that?
Sure. So, I mean, anyone that knows me knows I'm a broken record about this, but fully glyph, fully skill up your champions that you're using. It is invaluable, and the power increase you get from doing that to one of your champions is infinitely more than you would from just bringing them to 60 and not working on their glyphs or their skills at all. And that's one of the main things. I spent a lot of time in Queen of Tides farming the gear. You need last rotation. You needed a lot of just straight damage. Here you can be a little more lenient with damage. You can actually build your champions a little more tanky to take the hits. High resistance is also extremely valuable here because you can resist that stun that the champions put up when they have 7 stacks of the buff. So if you have champions that have an extreme amount of base resistance and get a lot of resistance from their glyphs, very, very, very solid here because that's just a power that's negated. So you can definitely do that. It's going to bring back a lot of the viability of tank comps. So in the first rotation, a lot of people ran Poisoners and Hackrin and Brand and just kind of whittled down the enemy team. That's going to be viable again here as long as your team has the resistance to not get stunned every turn. So we're going to see a return to that and less of 3 DPS, 4 DPS teams. Tank comps are going to be viable again, which is nice because that's a lot of options opened up to people.
No, that definitely makes sense. And one thing I want to point out to folks too is if you go down to the bottom right of any floor, you're going to see strategies and formations. So you're going to see compositions that other folks have used to clear that particular floor if you're having a hard time. And you're going to see a lot of the same, you know, especially when you're on normal. So normal, what a lot of folks are doing, like Slasher and I did last night, is they're hitting multi-battle and they're just ripping it because they've been playing the game for a little bit, right? So you're going to see some hardcore farm comps on normal. You're going to see a lot of Nat. You're going to see a lot of Evera. But if you start looking at some of the hard battles, I would imagine you're going to start hitting that wall where you can't just go in and, you know, auto it. You're probably going to have to actually tinker a little bit and think about it. So in those situations, I think you're going to see a little bit less. Although when I'm looking at it now, I am still kind of seeing, you know, your Windex, you know, and your Brand and your Nat and your Zatlux, your farm comps. But
Yep. I'd say for the first 40, 50 floors of hard, if you have good gear that you were using last rotation, you're going to be able to blow through it and kind of like burst them down. I think once you get to like 80, 90, that's when you're going to start seeing like the tank comps, the poison comps, the enemy max HP. So that's another thing that's not affected by defense is abilities that do enemy max HP damage. So Marion Shadowblood, Light Brand, they do damage based on the enemy's max health, and that doesn't scale with defense. So that they've also gained in value here too, and they weren't really used at all. Marion Shadowblood is very rarely used. She's gained a lot of value in this tower rotation.
And then nice. Aurak also has on the A3, you know, so that's awesome. So guys, another thing, we'll kind of wrap this up, but one thing I want to also point out is, you know, the value of the Void Tower. I mean, first and foremost, you get the value of, you know, tinkering around. Now, this game's a grind, and this game's gonna, since you don't have a cost and switching out gear, do not be afraid to go in and tinker with your units. Go in there and actually play around quite a bit. Celastra actually likes to strip all of his units before he enters something difficult and then rebuild everybody. that it's that kind of game. It's something where you're going to have to, if that's not for you, then unfortunately Ace might be something that you want to reconsider. But it is a game where you're going to have to think quite a bit. You're going to have to hit some brick walls. You're not going to be able to whale your way through it. There are a ton of power creep mechanisms in this game, and that's something that personally I absolutely love about it. But that's one thing that I think you guys will experience. But all in all, you really want to be aiming to clear, the hard floor 100 monthly. Now we're going to do other videos about how to prioritize your time in this game, especially if you're new. Now you want to follow those videos for sure. I would not come into your first month of the game and expect to clear floor 100 on hard mode. That's probably not going to happen.
Absolutely not.
Ultimately, you want to get to a point where you're getting this, because this right here is going to help you out quite a bit. You're going to be able to send your legendary units, and Ascension in this game, it's significant. You get a lot out of it. The units, some of their abilities change on A2, on A5, and then the stat increases they get, the speed increases they get are really significant. So you want to be aiming for those arcanas across the board. But that's sort of my final thoughts. I'm going to let Celastro lead us out since he's our Void Tower expert. But this was fun. This was super informative, and I really appreciate you putting together all this stuff, dude. I know you did a lot of research on it.
Yeah, of course. Final thoughts. I'd say that these new affixes really demonstrate how knowledgeable the devs are about their game, and they do take player feedback. They saw that not a lot of people got to Mythic last rotation, and they were like, okay, how can we change this to make this a little easier for people but still keep it a challenge? And I think they found that balance perfectly. I think this brings in a whole new meta. It makes champions that were barely ever used actually very valuable. And yeah, it just demonstrates once again that the devs really know what they're doing with this game, and it's really exciting for me because not only for this rotation, but in the future for Void Tower, I want to see what they do with it. Last note is, don't ignore the Void Tower. If you get stuck on a floor, go do other things, but you really want to try doing it and pushing as high as you possibly can, because the rewards are very, very valuable. Those limited summons, super important to get, especially if you're targeting a specific champion. Save those up until that champion is on the limited summon pool. You get gems, you get crystals, you get everything for doing Void Tower. So try to get, if you're at like floor 19, really try to get that 20. If the month is about to end and the tower is about to reset and you're at floor 32, maybe you can kind of hang out, but you could try to get to 40 and get a couple more rewards before it resets. So definitely an aspect of the game that you don't want to just ignore entirely.
No, I think that's well said, man. And one thing I want to point out in most of our videos, we talk about this on the stream quite a bit. We are, coming from several different gacha games. We absolutely love the way the developers have put together Ace. We really haven't seen any negatives, and what few things we have seen, Celastro has actually, been in full care and status, but of course, politely as possible, and mentioned to him on Facebook, and they actually get right back to him and tell him they're working on it. In some cases, have resolved it right away. So, coming from Raid, I mean, Epic 7, Smilegate was a great developer in my opinion. Coming from Raid, anything is a good developer, but objectively speaking, I think that this is, the carriage essentially to hook yourself to. If you want to play a gacha game. These folks really seem to be doing a great job, and most importantly, I am not part of a content creator program, neither is Celastro. We get absolutely nothing out of telling you guys that, and frankly, I'm going to keep it that way for a little bit, just so that we can try to get folks over to this game, and then at some point in time, if it does benefit me, I will certainly let everybody know, I'm paid to say this, but that's not the case today. Right now, we just love the game and we're playing it. So guys, with that, look for more content from us. Please like and subscribe. This is going to be on a new YouTube channel that we're creating just for Ace. And please join us on Twitch Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is Kizzle and Celastro signing out. Peace.